Welcome friends to this knowledge sharing session by Shrikant Kamath and Associates on e-invoicing under GST law. This is the first episode on e-invoicing. The episode is on the recently notified invoice schema. So what are the implications? How do we understand the schema? How do we plan for it? What are the changes that we are going to make in the system? We are going to cover all of it, and I'm sure you will benefit out of it. The whole intention is to just share my knowledge with you friends. I hope you find it useful. So without any delay, let us proceed for the next 30 minutes or so. This is a 30-minute slide show where I will be speaking and taking you through all the details of the invoice schema notified recently. Are aware about e-invoicing? I think the general misconception that is prevalent in public is that e-invoicing means that there will be some government portal which will generate the e-invoice for every GST taxpayer. That is not so. First of all, let me clarify that GST e-invoicing is mandatory presently only from for taxpayers whose turnover is in excess of 500 crores INR 500 or INR 5 billion, whichever way we want to see it. And basically e-invoicing will be applicable only from 1st of October 2020. Why e-invoicing? If anybody wants to know why e-invoicing, I'm sure there are enough problems that people are facing in terms of matching the input tax credit. So typically when you upload the sale invoice details, many a times there could be some errors and eventually it may not get reflected in the input tax credit register of your buyer, which is GSTR 2A, and from there starts the whole saga of trying to match your sale details with his purchase details. And that is where right now there is a lot of heartburn, and that is why e-invoicing is a very precise solution to these kind of issues. Government of course wants e-invoicing to avoid duplicate or fake invoicing, which is a big racket in the market worth thousands of crores, and government is losing money on these kind of bogus invoices. So e-invoicing is apparently the panacea as well as for the government. E-invoicing right now, as I said, is only going to be there for taxpayers having turnover in excess of 500 crores, but eventually it will be a reality for all the taxpayers. So I think this session will be useful maybe today for all those taxpayers whose turnover is in excess of 500 crores, but eventually this will be relevant for all the taxpayers when government makes it mandatory for all the taxpayers. So what is the mechanism of e-invoicing? If we want to understand, basically the government portal is not going to generate an e-invoice as I mentioned to you earlier. E-invoice is nothing but the invoice that you are going to generate from your own system. You are going to upload the data, the details of your invoice on the government portal. There is a new government portal which has already been notified, called Invoice Registration Portal, and you are going to upload this information of your invoice on this portal, and the portal will issue a unique reference number called invoice reference number, IRN. And once that IRN is issued, that is sacrosanct. Any invoice without an IRN will not be considered a valid invoice for all taxpayers whose turnover is in excess of 500 crores. This comes from Rule 48.4 and Rule 48.5 of the GST rules. So if your invoice is not uploaded, the data is not uploaded and the invoice reference number is not generated, that invoice is not considered a valid invoice by the GSTN portal. So mind well, as far as invoice reference number is concerned, it is going to be generated by the invoice registration portal, which is a separate portal from the current GST network portal, GSTN. GSTN will only have validated data from this IRP. So that is the whole intention of having a separate IRP. So invoices, all valid invoices, only the data related to valid invoices will exist on GSTN. As I mentioned to you, e-invoicing mandatory for taxpayers having turnover in excess of 5 billion. So the whole intention of this session is to make acclimatize or acquaint you with the recently notified schema or the format of the e-invoice. So invoice format is basically the essential fields which will be required to be there in your system, and there is a protocol in relation to these fields in terms of which are the mandatory fields, which are the optional fields, whether data is to be punched by way of alphabets or numericals or alphanumeric data. All those protocols have been defined under this recently notified schema. The schema has been notified by notification number 60 of 2020 on 30th of July 2020. So if you read that notification, it will look like a very lengthy and very complex protocol which has been defined by the government. But the whole purpose of this presentation is to simplify that protocol to help you understand very easily what is expected out of you in terms of how will your system capture all the details and how will your system eventually be able to generate the data with the right kind of in the right kind of format as prescribed in this notification. I hope you are with me on this, and that is why we are now looking at this presentation slide by slide to understand the invoice schema, as they call it. It is nothing but the format of the invoice. Schema is a terminology which is understood in machine language terms. So this schema is basic instructions that your machine or your system will have to incorporate, and basis that instructions, those instructions, your system should be equipped to generate the invoice, supply invoice or credit notes or debit notes, whichever documents are prescribed under GST law. Your system should be capable of generating those documents with the necessary fields and with the right kind of data, so that when it is uploaded on the invoice registration portal, the portal is able to generate the unique reference number, which is invoice reference number, the unique number which is to be generated by the portal. So there are some certain cardinality principles. In terms of cardinality means whether it is mandatory, whether it is optional, and if it is optional then whether it is to be repeated or it is a one-time thing. So if you see this table, it is very clear in terms of when you look at that notification and the schema, there are certain ways in which the rules are expressed. So it is if it is 01, then it means that reporting of item is optional, but when reported you cannot repeat it, so it is a one-time thing. If it is 1:1, it means that it is mandatory. If on the left, if it is 1 and not 0, it means it is mandatory, but on the right if it is 1, it means it is one time and not repetitive. But on the right, if 1 becomes n, then it has to be repeated every time when you generate the invoice. So these are the instructions for the machine or for your system, and that is why it has been, what instructions to send to your system or to provide to your system has also been defined in this schema. And that is why you have to interpret these rules in terms of machine language, or probably your IT manager or your IT person has to be a part of understanding the schema, because eventually he will ensure that it is seamlessly implemented. And maximum length of the characters, typically whether it is, if it is decimals, then before the decimal point how many digits, and after the decimal point how many digits, is something which is defined by maximum length. So these are some things which you will when you read that notification, you will find these elements repeated on every page. But not to worry, I think if you are not clear, you should also take your IT manager along with you to interpret, and I think he will be able to explain it if you do not understand. But I am sure there is not much to explain. This is self-explanatory, and this is more for the machine. So basically the programmer, or when you have to program it, these are the rules more to be understood by the programmer than by you. So if we have to understand the schema expects you to provide information in two sections, and there is a general section which comprises of generic and essential information which is applicable to most of the suppliers, and then there is a special section which will apply only to select category of taxpayers. So for simplicity's sake, I have divided this session or this presentation into two sections. One is the general section, where you have to keep a note of all the general information that you are expected to. First of all, you have to create those fields in your system, and then once fields are created, the information should be generated appropriately in each of those fields. So which is a general section, and then special sections is for special categories. If you fall in that special category, by looking at every heading, you will come to know whether that special category applies to you. If it applies, then you have to opt for it, and every time when the invoice is generated, information under that section will also have to be provided. So let us come to the main section, which is the basic detail. As I said, basic details, you should be able to populate relevant data in 8 out of the 9 fields. Why? Because the 9th field, or one of the fields in these 9 fields, is the IRN, which will be generated by the portal. So except for this field, you are expected to provide the data in your invoice for the rest of the 8 fields under this segment, which is basic detail. What are those 8 fields? First of all, it is the version. What is the version of your invoice? So you have to explain which is the version. Is it the domestic invoice? Is it an export invoice? So you have to mention that. You have to mention supply type code, document type code. So what is the supply type? What is the document type? Document type, is it a credit note? Is it a debit note? Or is it an invoice? What exactly is the document type? So document number, document date, additional currency code, if it is a reverse charge invoice, it is not a supply invoice, then obviously this will apply, the other things will not apply. So that is where, so I think everything is self explanatory and relevant. It is nothing which is irrelevant here and nothing which is difficult to understand. Once you get into the groove of understanding your current, the way you are currently raising your invoices or currently inputting data on the invoice. IGST applicability despite supplier and recipient located in same state if certain, in certain cases, as you are aware, example, if your supplies to SEZs, then or SEZs are supplying to a domestic I mean DTA, but within the same state, in spite of that IGST will apply. So I mean such are the cases you need to make sure that that field gets populated. So that field exists in under this segment, which is number 1. Talk about maybe want to mention about the delivery challan or something, any so other reference you can define what document reference or what other reference you want to, once you define it, then every time you will have to provide details related to that other reference which has to be relevant. There is a protocol which is provided for email and phone numbers also. In terms of whether the fields are alphanumeric or numeric or alphabetic and special characters, everything is defined. You please have a look at it, and I think it will be very easy to understand. There is nothing difficult over here. Let's look at the next segment in the main section, which is recipient information. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a mandatory segment because it is in relation to the recipient of the goods or services. So recipient legal name, GST of recipient, place of supply, recipient address, recipient place, recipient state code. These are all mandatory fields, and there are certain optional fields too, like recipient pin code is an optional field, and country code of export. So if the recipient is outside India, then you need to put the country code also of export, and recipient phone. Obviously it is not necessary that recipient phone number will be available for the person who is generating the invoice or for the to be incorporated in your system, but nevertheless if you want, you have that option, recipient phone and recipient email address as well. Is concerned, pay information is concerned, this is for if you have, if you are the person who is liable to pay GST on reverse charge basis, then you need to mention details about the payment that you have made to the payee, and payee, whoever is the payee, you need to provide information related to the payee. So that is the intention of this segment. So if it becomes applicable, then all the fields are mandatory. Let's move to the next segment, which is delivery information. Delivery information again deals with details of the location to which supply is to be made and the place from where supply is being made. So again this is location specific, so it is not a mandatory segment, and it has only two fields, which is ship to details and dispatch from details. So basically this is something which is not really very important, and that is why this is an optional field. Let's move to the next segment, which is 8. Under this there is only one field, which is the item list. It provides information about the goods and services that you are going to invoice. So that is why it is a mandatory field, because it talks about what are the goods, what are the services that you are going to invoice, and which is obviously important piece of information, and that is why it is mandatory. Let's move to the document total. And document total, again, obviously, what is the aggregate of the taxes and what is the aggregate of your invoice value. So document total becomes very relevant, and that is why uh, basically it is to validate whether the GST computed on the aggregate invoice value and the GST that you have paid or you are shown as payable is proper or not. This is a validation field, and that is why it is a mandatory field. Let's go to the next segment, which is extra information. The very title that it is an extra information should be enough to explain that it is an optional field and not a mandatory field. But once you select this segment, then it becomes mandatory to provide information which is under which the field which is at 10.1. And what is that? That is the only field which is mandatory, and other uh, information is all optional. This is the mandatory information is on in relation to which is the scheme which is under which you are issuing this invoice. Now obviously the scheme under which you are issuing the invoice is a GST scheme of taxation. So today e-invoicing is a reality only under GST and no other indirect tax. But gradually in future, when probably in e-invoicing will become a reality for other taxes too, that point in time when your system generates the e-invoice, it should be able to distinguish between the GST e-invoice and e-invoice for other tax related other supplies which do not attract GST, but they attract some other scheme of taxation. That is why mentioning the tax scheme is a mandatory field, and others are all optional. What are the others? Let's look at the other fields. The other fields are remarks, which is unstructured information relevant to the invoice. It is unstructured information. So here you can put whatever information, whatever alpha numeric data that you think is relevant to describe the particular supply. Port code, this you will get from the customs EDI system, IceGate. You will also require to put in, if it is a export supply, then obviously you will have to put the shipping bill number as well. Shipping bill number again is generated in the customs EDI system, so you will have to access that and get the shipping bill number, and accurately you will have to put that. So I believe your system will be able to pull that information and populate it over here if you are going to opt for these fields. Mind well, these are all optional fields. All this shipping bill date, shipping bill number, port code, you will get from the customs EDI system. And if export duty is applicable, then obviously you will have to mention the export duty too. And if it is a deemed export supply, if it is a penultimate export supply, and if the supplier is going to if you are the supplier supplying ultimately to the exporter, then if you are opting for any refund, then you can also mention so in this field, which is supplier can opt refund. And if the supply is through a e-commerce operator, through a marketplace, then you will have to mention the e-commerce operator's GSTIN in this field at 10.8. Let's move to the next segment, which is additional supporting documents. the very title additional documents is good enough to uh, I mean make it clear that this is again an optional segment and not a mandatory one, and all the three fields under this segment are also obviously optional, which is additional supporting documents. You have to provide the URL. You don't have to actually I mean put any PDF or any this. You just need to put the link, mention the link in the first field. Any other document, if you want, you can put the PDF or my Word version, Word document version in an encoded format in the next field. And finally, any other additional information you want to mention, such as supplier and recipient related transaction, like trade specific information, drug license, registration number, and FOB or CIF value, etc. All these kind of information which are of course have to be relevant basically, you can mention over here. There is enough uh, options that have been created. These fields have been created specifically so that if you feel like um, generating that information and putting it in the document, then this is where you need to put that. Let's go to the, again as I said, e-way bill details. If e-way bill applies to your supplies and a particular part requires to be populated of the e-way bill part A or part B, then you will have to provide the necessary information under this segment, which is in relation to the e-way bill, which relates to that particular invoice. So when when a invoice is generated, the invoice should mention the e-way bill related information very clearly, and the information on the e-way bill and this information about the e-way bill on the invoice need to match, need to match exactly. There cannot be any kind of a discrepancy, because the whole objective of putting this information is that the invoice registration portal IRP will validate this with the e-way bill portal. So if there is a mismatch, the invoice number, the unique reference number on the invoice may not get generated in the IRP. So please understand that as far as your system is concerned, the information needs to be accurately captured, the fields need to be exactly the same. So alphanumeric fields or alphabetical fields or numeric fields, they need to be exactly the same as they are in the for the generation of the e-way bill, and the same information needs to be transported over here, and that is how you need to remember. So what are those? Let's see one by one what are those fields. So transporter ID, which is the registration or enrollment number of the transporter. Mode of transportation you have to mention, whether you are transporting by road or rail or by air or by ship. So distance of transportation you have to mention in terms of kilometers or miles. So you need to mention the distance. This is kilometers is the standard, because as you know, for the e-way bill this is a mandatory requirement. So you need to mention the distance. Transporter's name you need to mention. Transporter document number, this is a mandatory field if the transportation is, the mode of transport is by rail or air or ship. And transport document date also, because railways or airlines or shipping lines have their own documents, so that is why those airway bills or railway bills, those documents of transport, those are unique documents and unique they have unique document number, and that is why it should, if there is a validation that the portal wants to do, then your document number should be accurately captured. There cannot be any mismatch. And transport document date also needs to be accurate and correct. Vehicle number, if your mode of transport is road, it can be a truck or a tempo or whatever the vehicle which takes the cargo by road. And vehicle type, you have to mention whether it is a over dimensional cargo or it is a regular vehicle. So these are on the e-way bill. Now let's come to special sections. Ship to details. You are very well aware that GST law, I mean the IGST Act, deals with the bill to ship to transactions where a person need not be the, I mean the actual the goods, he need not supply the goods from his place, but he may arrange for the supply of goods to another person. So basically the supplier of the goods will raise the invoice on one person but eventually dispatch the goods to another person. So that is where the bill to ship to concept comes. So the ship to details are required to be provided under this segment. Once this is applicable, especially for transactions where there is a bill to ship to mode of transaction, once this applies, then the following three fields become mandatory fields, which is what is the legal name of the ship to person, what is the, now the trade name is obviously an optional field, and what is the GSTIN also of the ship to person is not a mandatory field, it is an optional field, because ultimately you are going to raise the bill, you are going to raise the invoice on the bill to person. So the GSTIN of the ship to person is not a mandatory field, but the address of the ship to person is the mandatory. But if he has two, so the second address is an optional field. And what is the place, which is the state or which is the city of the ship to person, so that is again a mandatory field. The pin code of that person is also a mandatory field. The state code is again a mandatory field. Let's go to the next segment, which is dispatch from details. This is a optional one, and barring the alternative address, all other dispatch from detail fields are all mandatory fields. What are those? Entity name, and your first address is mandatory, the second one is an optional one. Again, city, town, state code, pin item is a mandatory field. Then comes gross amount, which is again a mandatory field. Then if you are offering any discount, then what is the item discount amount? This is again an optional field. Then comes the pre-tax value. What is the pre-tax value? Pre-tax value is different from taxable value, and the government expects you to make a note of this and put pre-tax value and taxable value separate. So they have even offered some examples in the schema. So here they have explained that where old goods are exchanged for new ones, example, new phone supplied for 20,000 along with an exchange of old phone, then pre-tax value would be 20,000, but taxable value would be 24,000, assuming that the old phone has an exchange value of 4,000 rupees. So this is how pre-tax value and taxable value have been explained. So you need to make a note of it and make sure that pre-tax value is correctly reflecting, it is not taxable value. So they have also explained that this would apply in real estate, in the case of real estate taxpayers also, in the real estate taxpayers in the real estate sector, where pre-tax value and taxable value would be different. And then comes item taxable value. So itemized taxable value, item wise taxable value is expected over here, and it is a mandatory field. Value cannot be negative of the item wise taxable value. Then comes GST rate, which is a mandatory field. Obviously you have to mention the right kind of rate. The rate master will put the correct rate over here. Then comes your IGST amount, which is optional. If it is an interstate, it will reflect IGST, or if it is a IGST transaction, then obviously IGST amount will get populated. So if it is a IGST amount, then obviously CGST and SGST will be nil or will not have any data. But if CGST and SGST apply, then both these fields will simultaneously reflect the data. It cannot be that only CGST reflects and SGST does not reflect. Because if tax rate is 18, then CGST will have to be 9 and SGST will have to be 9. Then comes ad valorem rate of GST compensation cess if it is applicable. Then comes compensation cess amount, the actual amount. So 2.19 is the rate, while 2.20 is the absolute amount of compensation cess. Similarly, non-ad valorem compensation cess is again an optional field. Then comes ad valorem state cess, rate, and then state cess amount, and again state cess non-ad valorem amount. So all these are optional, but once you opt for it, once it applies to you, then obviously you will have to provide all the information. And other charges, now other charges has been explained in the notification. Other charges could be pure agent related reimbursement, which has to get reflected in the invoice. So you need to mention about other charges over here at 2.1.2.25. Then comes your purchase order line reference, which is again an optional field, and it relates to a particular item in the line item in the purchase order, and the total amount for that item. So this item total amount somewhere will have to again in the gross total, this will be considered, and eventually this will be a part of the aggregate total amount. We are coming to that in the next segment. This is item total amount is again a mandatory field, because ultimately the total amount, the aggregate total in the earlier part where we saw the main section, in that one of the segments was the gross total, and item total, all item totals will ultimately make a gross total. So that is where it has to, the system will have to validate it, because the IRP, the invoice registration portal, will validate each of it, and only when all this gets accurately matched and tallied, then only the IRP will generate the invoice reference number. So you have to be very careful when you need to create these fields as well as when you input the data. Then the optional fields are follow code of country of origin. This is again available from your customs EDI system. So when you are supplying, let's say you are a trader or dealer in mobile phones, obviously you would know that your mobile phone is from which country, and that is where you need to mention the country of origin in your in this segment for that particular supply. And of course, if unique serial number of that item is available, then you need to mention again, like typically for mobile phone you will have a IMEI number, so you can mention that IMEI number here. And product attribute details is I have explained that in there is another segment only for product attribute where I have explained, but nonetheless product attribute is something special characteristic of that product, like a particular color of so if a car may have come in 6 different colors or shades, whatever they call it, so the attribute could be, or probably it could be a particular version of the car, so that attribute can be mentioned over here. So for example, you can say if it is an anniversary version, then product attribute details can mention that it's an anniversary version of so and so car, so and so model. Then comes document total details. As I said, that there is a segment for document total details. You need to accurately mention the document total here, and the portal will validate it from your other fields, and eventually the total over here has to match with individual item wise totals. This is a aggregate total taxable value. This is a mandatory field, and IGST amount is of course optional, but by optional it means that IGST, if it is applicable, then it becomes mandatory, and if CGST is applicable, then CGST and SGST together become mandatory, UTGST or SGST. So optional is misleading over here. Basically, if it applies, if it is an interstate transaction, then obviously IGST is also a mandatory field, or if it is a within state transaction, then CGST and SGST become mandatory fields. And similarly, compensation cess amount, state cess amount, invoice level, if it overall at an invoice level, not at an item level, if you are offering discount, then what is the invoice level discount amount. These are all optional fields. Other charges, if you have other charges, then you need to mention over here. As I said, other charges, they have explained that it could be your I mean, if it is a other charges include where you are not the one who is providing the service or goods, but it is so in such cases you can mention that. And finally, round off amount of total invoice value. So rounded off to 2 digits, so that is provided in the schema, and again this is an optional field. And then finally the mandatory field, which is total invoice value in rupee terms. If you want to mention other than rupee some foreign currency, then you can, that is an optional field also provided to you. And if you have in fact received any amount, advance paid amount, so this will be advance paid. By advance paid, it means that if you have already received some amount, then you need to mention that, and what is the outstanding amount on that supply. So if for that supply, if out of 100 rupees for that supply, if you have received 20 rupees, then you need to mention it over here. Outstanding would be 80 rupees for a supply total taxable value of 100 rupees. Then comes your finally the final two segments, which is A1.4 and 1.5. A1.4 talks about batch details. I mentioned earlier also that in another segment, in the special section, batch details are all you can provide batch details over there. That is an optional segment, optional field, but once you provide over there and I mean, then you are expected to provide over here as well. But mind well, both these at both places they should match. There cannot be a mismatch on batch details. Only the first field is a mandatory field for batch number, which is batch number, basically A1.4.1. The other two fields, batch expiry date and batch warranty date, are optional fields. And attribute also I explained to you. I gave you the example of a car. Here I have given the example of a pack of noodles. So a pack of noodles could be two different packs of noodles could be of two different flavors. One could be a masala flavor, another could be a cheese flavor. So in both these cases the attribute will be, the attribute name will be flavor, and attribute value would be, in one case would be masala and another case would be cheese. So that is the attribute details. If you want to put, there is an option for that as well at A1.5. So we come to the end of this schema. You need to remember that these are the mandatory segments in the schema. Segment number 1, which is basic details. Segment number 2, which is document period. Segment number 3.2, or in our presentation we have called it segment number 4, which is supplier information. So basic details, document period if applicable to you, supplier information, recipient information, invoice item details, document total, e-way bill information, item related details, and document total details. If you recall, in that those pie charts, all the red shades are the ones which are mandatory segments. So over there it has been shown in red. I have again summarized it here. So please make a note that barring these, rest everything will be optional. But optional again is a misleading term. If it is applicable in your case, then optional becomes mandatory in some cases. You need to be mindful of that, and I have explained to you in which cases optional becomes mandatory if it applies in your case. For example, I explained to you about the debit note, credit note, document related information. So in that case, that segment, that section, that field becomes mandatory field, and it, so optional is misleading in those cases. So here I have again put it over here that once those fields are applicable and they are mandatory to provide, then you need to provide that as per the schema protocol. The next point that is important is that e-way bill data, you cannot skip the e-way bill data related information if e-way bills are applicable to your documents or supply documents, invoices rather. And if wherever there is a information or data which is to be provided repeatedly, you need to ensure that the correct data is provided, so that in the loop it gets validated and the IRP does not discard that data or does not discard the invoice, and it is able to generate the unique reference number seamlessly. That's all we have, dear friends, in today's session. I hope you are clear about the e-invoice schema. To again remind you, e-invoice is not something which will get generated by the portal. It will be your own system which will provide all the data, which will upload the information on the IRP portal, and the IRN, the invoice reference number, will be generated, and that is nothing but the e-invoice. So all the best for your e-invoice generation. I hope you find this session useful. I will be waiting for your feedback, and I'll come up with many more videos which will be useful to you hopefully on GST related provisions and GST related new amendments. Thank you so much.